Welcome to Monk's Moon Temple. Find a comfortable space where you can rest. Allow your body to settle into the chair, the floor, the bed beneath you. Let go of any need to be anywhere else, to do anything else. Simply be here. Listen to the sound of this voice, and notice the gentle rhythm of your own breath. You may have arrived here carrying a quiet weight. A sense of weariness that sleep doesn't touch. It's the fatigue of a mind constantly measuring, comparing, and correcting. The exhaustion of trying to be a better version of yourself, while secretly fearing the version you are is somehow not enough. You look at your life and see a list of repairs to be made, on your habits, your thoughts, your relationships, your very soul. What if this entire project of self-improvement is based on a single, fundamental error? What if the problem isn't that you're flawed, but that you believe in a solid, separate, you, that can be perfected in the first place? This is the core insight the Buddha offered over 2 millennia ago. He didn't see a world of broken selves needing fixing. He saw suffering arising from one powerful illusion, the illusion of a permanent, independent self. Imagine you are listening to a symphony. You hear the violins, the cellos, the flutes, the percussion. Each instrument has its own sound, its own moment. It's easy to get captivated by a single violin's sweet, sorrowful note. You might think, that note is too quiet, or that phrase should be longer. But that note does not exist apart from the symphony. Its beauty and meaning come from its place within the whole, the silence before it, the harmony around it, the resonance that follows. To judge the single note as inadequate is to miss the music entirely. You believe you are that single, isolated note. You strive to be louder, sweeter, more perfect, comparing your sound to every other instrument in the room. The exhaustion is the strain of trying to maintain your separateness, to be a solo performance in a reality that is, and always has been, an interconnected symphony. Your true nature is not the solitary note. It is the entire field of sound and silence in which all notes arise and fade. You are not a self to be improved, but awareness itself, experiencing the temporary, passing melody of me. Let this be a gentle background intention for our time together, not to build, but to see. Not to achieve, but to realize. I'll begin with a story from my own life, from a time of deep confusion. I was in my 20s, living in a bustling city, convinced that clarity and peace were things you could earn through effort and achievement. I was running, through degrees, through jobs, through relationships, chasing a finish line that kept moving. One sweltering summer afternoon, the power went out in my building. The constant hum of the refrigerator, the air conditioner, the city itself fell silent. Annoyed, I went to the rooftop for some air. Up there, I found an elderly neighbor, Mr. Rossi, sitting in a folding chair, simply looking at the horizon. Frustrated, I said, "Power's out. Can't get anything done." He didn't look away from the sky. "The pigeons don't seem to mind," he said softly. I followed his gaze. Flocks of pigeons were wheeling in the hazy air, their movement effortless, a silent dance. In that still, powerless moment, something in my own frantic striving short-circuited. I wasn't looking at the pigeons, I was, for the first time, seeing them. There was no thought of what they meant, or what I should be doing. There was just the seeing. And in that pure perception, the heavy, separate I that was so busy getting things done simply vanished. There was only the rooftop, the heat, the wheeling birds, and a vast, quiet peace. It lasted only a moment before my thinking mind rushed back in. But the imprint remained. That moment of unasked for grace showed me that what I was seeking wasn't ahead of me on my to-do list. It was already here, hidden beneath the noise of my own busyness. It was the aware space itself, the silent witness that had been present all along, watching the lifelong chase. That experience eventually led me to the Buddha's teachings, to the profound truth of anatta, or not self. It's a truth that liberates not by giving you something new, but by revealing what you have always been. If the feeling of being a separate self, constantly needing repair, resonates with you, you're not alone. If you'd like these gentle reminders to find you, I invite you to subscribe to Monk's Moon Temple. It's a quiet harbor in the digital noise, a place to remember. Now, let's take a soft, shared breath. Inhale deeply, feeling the air cool in your nostrils, and exhale slowly, releasing any tension you're holding in your jaw, your shoulders. Good. Let's explore the machinery of this separate self. It is, essentially, a story. Your mind is a brilliant, relentless narrator. It takes the raw, neutral data of this moment, the pressure of the seat, the sound of a distant car, a fleeting memory, and weaves it into a continuous, first-person epic, my life. This story has a protagonist, I, a past, filtered through memory and interpretation, a future, feared or desired, and recurring themes, I'm the kind of person who. We are so immersed in this story that we mistake it for reality. We think the narrator is reporting facts. But the Buddha invites us to question the narrator's most basic assumption, I exist as this separate entity. Try a simple experiment. Right now, ask yourself, what am I? Notice what arises. A thought might answer, I am a listener. I am tired. I am a parent. Those are labels, concepts from the story. A sensation might arise, tightness in the chest, an itch on the arm. Those are bodily sensations. An emotion might be present, calm, anticipation, restlessness. That's a feeling. But look for the thing that has the thought, owns the sensation, feels the emotion. Can you find a solid, central commander separate from these experiences? Or do you find only the experiences themselves, appearing and disappearing in a field of conscious awareness? When you look sincerely, you may find no solid thinker behind thoughts, just thoughts arising. No feeler behind feelings, just feelings flowing through. You are not the content of the story. You are the capacity for the story. The silent, spacious screen upon which the entire movie of me is projected. A helpful metaphor is the sky and the weather. The weather of your life includes sunny days of joy, stormy days of grief, foggy days of confusion, and windy days of anxiety. If you identify as the weather, your life is a chaotic, exhausting roller coaster. One day you are sunshine, the next a thunderstorm, and you believe each state defines you. But you are the sky. Vast, open, unchanging. The weather patterns move through you. A storm does not harm the sky, it happens within it. The sky holds the storm without becoming stormy. Your essential nature is like that sky, aware, peaceful, and untouched by the passing conditions of life. The exhaustion comes from identifying with every passing cloud, every bolt of lightning, believing each one is who you are. Peace is remembering you are the sky that holds it all. Let's close this part with a short, original story from the tradition of wandering monks. A young seeker climbed a mountain to find a sage known for her wisdom. Master, he said, bowing deeply, I am full of faults, anger, jealousy, fear. My mind is like a wild horse. Please, give me the discipline to tame it. The sage handed him an empty teacup and a pot of steaming water. Pour, she said. He poured the water until the cup was full. Now, she said, add the tea leaves. He looked at the full cup. Master, it will overflow. I must pour some out first. The sage smiled. Exactly. Your mind is already full. Full of ideas about your faults, your wild horse, the discipline you need. To receive wisdom, you must first create space. Not by battling your thoughts, but by emptying your cup. Start by simply noticing the space around your thoughts. That space is your true mind. The horse runs freely within the meadow. You are the meadow. The young seeker sat in silence, not trying to tame anything, but simply noticing the space of his own awareness. For the first time, he felt peace. He wasn't a problem to be solved. He was the open field in which all things, wild or calm, could exist. You are that meadow. Your task is not to tame every wild horse of thought and emotion, but to recognize the boundless field in which they roam. Rest there. Let's continue together. Settle back into your body. Notice the points of contact, where your feet meet the floor, where your back meets the support behind you. Let yourself be held, completely. There's nothing to achieve in this moment. Nothing to become. Just this gentle, ongoing fact of being alive. We've begun to question the solid story of me. But that story doesn't exist in a vacuum. It is constantly being reinforced by one of the mind's most habitual activities, comparison. This is where the feeling of not enough takes root and grows thorns. You look at another person's life, their peace, their success, their relationships. And you measure your own inner world against the curated highlight reel of their exterior. You compare your chapter 3 to someone else's chapter 20. You compare your behind-the-scenes chaos to their finished, polished performance. And in this unfair arithmetic, you always seem to come up short. The Buddha understood this mental habit deeply. He saw that comparison is a trick of perception. It's like trying to compare the depth of the ocean by examining only the patterns on its surface. The waves may be calm or turbulent, but the depth remains unchanged, unaffected by the temporary conditions above. Your essential depth, your capacity for awareness, for peace, for love, cannot be measured against anyone else's. It is immeasurable. The exhaustion you feel is the exhaustion of living on the turbulent surface, constantly checking to see if your waves are the right shape and size, while forgetting the profound, still depth that is your true home. I want to share a story with you, an original tale from the folklore of a small coastal village. In this village, there were two pearl divers. Kaito was young, strong, and obsessed with finding the largest, most perfect pearl. He would dive deep, his eyes scanning the ocean floor, his mind filled with visions of the glory and wealth a great pearl would bring. He'd see another diver surface with a good find, and his heart would tighten with competitive fire. He'd dive again, pushing his limits, his breath burning in his chest. He found many pearls, but they never seemed perfect enough. He'd hold them up to the light, seeing only tiny flaws. He grew weary, his joy for the dive replaced by the strain of the search. The other diver, Imiko, was older. She would sit in her boat before diving, just breathing, watching the play of light on the water. When she dove, she moved like a part of the sea itself. Her eyes were soft, taking in the entire spectacle, the coral, the fish, the dancing light rays. She didn't hunt for pearls, she engaged with the ocean. And because her awareness was so open, she often noticed the gentle gleam of a pearl nestled in a place others missed. She would retrieve it with a sense of gratitude, not triumph. Her pearls were not always the largest, but they had a unique, serene luster. One day, a storm destroyed both their boats. Kaito was devastated. His entire identity, the great diver, was shattered with the wood. He sat on the shore, despondent. Emiko sat beside him, watching the powerful, chaotic waves. "The ocean gives," she said quietly, "and the ocean takes." It was never about the boat. It was always about the relationship to the water. You were diving against the ocean. I was diving with it. Kaito finally understood. His exhaustion came from seeing the ocean as an adversary to be conquered for a prize. Emiko's peace came from seeing herself as part of the ocean's own rhythm. The pearl was not the goal, it was a gift encountered along the way in a state of harmonious participation. You are not here to conquer life, to extract a perfect pearl of a self from it. You are here to participate with it, to be in relationship with the present moment. When you compare, you are diving against life, seeing it as a competitor. Your worth is not a pearl to be found. It is the very nature of the ocean you are swimming in. Breathe that in. Inhale, and imagine you are breathing in the depth of the ocean. Exhale, and release any need to compare your surface waves to anyone else's. You are the whole sea. This brings us to a crucial and often misrepresented Buddhist teaching, karma. In popular culture, karma has been simplified into a cosmic scoreboard: do good, do bad, get bad. It's often wielded as a tool for judgment, both of others and of ourselves. They must have done something to deserve that, or the more painful, what did I do to deserve this? This interpretation is not only simplistic, it can be deeply harmful. It adds a layer of guilt and blame to suffering, suggesting that if you are in pain, you must have earned it. This is a heavy, exhausting burden to carry. The Buddha's teaching on karma is far more nuanced and compassionate. The word karma simply means action. It refers to the universal law of cause and effect, not a system of moral punishment and reward. It is the understanding that our intentional actions have consequences, much like planting a seed will eventually result in a plant. But here is the vital part we must understand: you are not planting seeds in an empty, controlled garden. You were born into a garden already overflowing with growing things. Trees planted by your ancestors, flowers seeded by your culture, weeds that blew in on the winds of history and circumstance. You inherit the consequences of countless actions you did not take. A storm may flood your garden, that is not your karma, that is weather. A bird may drop a new seed, that is not your karma, that is chance. Your power and your responsibility lie not in controlling every seed that has ever been planted, but in how you tend the plot of life in front of you now. You can't change the fact that a thorn bush grows in the southeast corner, perhaps planted by a past generation's trauma. But you can choose not to water it. You can choose to plant seeds of kindness next to it. You can carefully prune it so it harms less. This view is profoundly freeing. It means that when hardship comes, you don't have to compound your suffering by blaming yourself, searching for what negative thought or past misdeed manifested this reality. You can say, "This is a storm. This is a thorn bush I inherited. My task is not to blame myself for the weather, but to tend to my garden with wisdom and care in this moment. Karma is not fate. It is responsibility. It is your ability to respond to the conditions of your life with intention. The consequence of an action is not a payment for a debt, it is simply the natural outcome, like the sound that follows a struck bell. Let me illustrate with a personal anecdote. Years ago, I worked with a man who was universally described as difficult. He was sharp, critical, and defensive. The common office karma said, "He's rude, so I will be short with him. He creates tension, so I will avoid him." This was the automatic, knee-jerk planting of more thorn seeds. One day, I chose a different action. I had no grand hope of changing him. I simply acted from a different intention. When he made a cynical remark, I responded not with defensiveness, but with a neutral, "I hear that's frustrating." When he was isolated at lunch, I sat nearby and made benign small talk about the weather. I watered seeds of simple, non-reactive human presence. The consequences were not dramatic. He didn't become a new person. But the quality of my own experience in his presence changed drastically. The tense, anxious knot in my stomach when I saw him began to dissolve. The thorn bush of our interaction was still there, but I was no longer repeatedly scratching myself on it. By changing my own intentional action, I changed the consequence for me, from one of resentment and dread to one of neutral steadiness. That is karma in action. It is the immense power you have to shape your inner landscape through your present moment choices. So, release the burden of believing you are being cosmically punished or that you must perfectly control every thought to control your destiny. Instead, focus on the integrity of your next action, your next word, your next thought. Plant seeds gently, with awareness, and trust that they will grow in their own time. Tend your garden. That is where your true power lies. Let's rest in this understanding for a moment. Bring to mind a current difficulty, a thorn bush in your garden. It might be a stressful relationship, a financial worry, a health concern. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" or "What did I do wrong?" simply ask, "Given that this is here, how can I tend to it, and to myself, with wisdom in this very moment?" Don't rush for an answer. Just hold the question in your heart, like a seed. Then, bring your attention gently back to your breath. In and out. The breath is the simplest, most present act of tending. You are here. You are aware. You are responding, right now, with the wise action of presence. Welcome back. Let's continue to settle into this space of gentle inquiry. There's no test here. Nothing to memorize. Just an invitation to listen, and to notice what resonates in your own direct experience. We've touched on the illusion of a separate self and the liberating perspective of karma as conscious action. Now, let's explore a feeling that often arises when these concepts start to land. A sense of loneliness or emptiness. If I'm not this solid, me, with all its stories and defenses, then what am I? It can feel like standing on a cliff edge, looking into a vast, open sky. Beautiful, but terrifying. We're so accustomed to the cozy, if cramped, confines of our self-story that true openness can feel like being lost. The Buddha's teachings don't leave you in a void. They point you toward your true home, which is not a smaller, better self, but a boundless sense of connection. The feeling of separation is the loneliness. Seeing through it reveals the interconnectedness of all things. Let me offer a metaphor. Imagine a single wave in the ocean feeling afraid. It looks at other waves, bigger, smaller, crashing ahead of it, and thinks, I am alone. My form is temporary. When I crash, I will be gone. This is the suffering of the wave believing it is only a wave. But the wave is made of water. And the water in that wave is the same water in every other wave, in the deep currents, in the clouds above, in the rain that will fall. The wave's true nature is not its temporary, individual form, but the ocean itself, limitless, connected, eternal. Its fear melts when it realizes, I am not just a wave. I am the ocean, expressing itself as a wave for a little while. Your feeling of a separate self is the wave. Your true nature is the ocean. The loneliness comes from identifying with the temporary form. Peace comes from remembering you are the boundless substance from which all forms arise. I'll share an original story, one told to me by a stargazing friend who was an astronomer. A young astronomer, Leo, spent his nights in a remote observatory, charting distant galaxies. He was brilliant but deeply lonely. He felt separate from the people in the nearby town, separate from the mundane world, adrift in the cosmos. One particularly clear night, he was tracking a faint nebula. His mind was filled with calculations of distance, light years, and immense, cold space. A profound isolation gripped him. Just then, the old janitor, a man named Samir, came in to empty the trash. He saw Leo's slumped shoulders and paused. Heavy stuff out there? Samir asked. It's all so separate, Leo sighed. Infinite distances. We're just a speck, utterly alone. Samir nodded, looking not at the telescope but out the window at the dark sky. I see it different, he said softly. Look up. That darkness isn't empty space between the stars. My grandma used to say it's the glue. You can't have a necklace without the string that holds the beads together. The stars are the beads. The dark sky is the string. You're not looking at separation. You're looking at the thing that connects everything. He tapped his own chest. Same in here. The thoughts, the feelings, they're like little stars. The quiet awareness you have of them, that's the dark sky. It's not empty. It's what holds it all together. You're not a speck. You're the whole sky, having a thought about being a speck. Leo was silent. He looked away from the eyepiece and just gazed. For the first time, he wasn't analyzing the points of light, he was resting in the vast, connective darkness that held them. His loneliness didn't vanish, but it was absorbed into something much larger, a sense of belonging to the fabric of the universe itself. You are that connective awareness, the dark sky, not just the twinkling, isolated star of me. Your thoughts and feelings are simply content within you. You are the space that holds them. In that realization, loneliness transforms into a profound intimacy with all that is. This understanding naturally leads us to a practice that is the heart of Buddhist training, mindfulness, or sati. But let's clear away any misconceptions. Mindfulness is not about achieving a blank, thoughtless mind. It's not a productivity hack to make you focus better at work, though that can be a side effect. And it is certainly not about forcing yourself to be calm. At its core, mindfulness is the gentle, non-judgmental awareness of present moment experience. It is the act of the ocean noticing its own waves. The sky noticing its own weather. It is the dark string becoming aware of the beads it holds. Think of your mind as a clear, flowing stream. Mindfulness is the practice of sitting on the bank of that stream, watching the water go by. Thoughts are leaves floating on the surface. Sensations are ripples. Emotions are changing currents. Normally, we see an interesting leaf, a worry about the future, and we jump into the stream to chase it. We get swept away by the current of that thought, carried miles downstream into a story about disaster. Or we see an unpleasant ripple, a pain, and we start frantically trying to dam the stream, to stop the flow. Mindfulness is the courage and the kindness to stay on the bank. To see the worry leaf float by and simply note, ah, there's a worried thought. To feel the pain ripple and simply note, this is a sensation of tightness. You don't have to jump in. You don't have to build a dam. You just watch the stream flow. This is not passive. It is the most powerful stance you can take, the stance of the aware witness, rather than the drowning participant. The beauty of this practice is that it reveals a crucial truth: you are not the stream. You are the awareness watching the stream. The leaves and ripples and currents are what you experience, but they are not who you are. This simple shift in perspective is where freedom begins. Let's try a very brief practice together, right now. You don't need to change your breathing or sit perfectly straight. Just for the next minute, I invite you to simply notice. Notice the physical sensations in your body. The weight in your seat. The temperature of the air on your skin. Any areas of tension or ease. Just notice. Now, notice any sounds. The sound of my voice. Any background noises, a hum, a distant sound. Just notice them arriving and fading in your hearing. Now, notice any thoughts. Don't engage them. Don't follow them. Just acknowledge their presence. Thinking. Planning. Wondering. And now, notice the space in which all of this is happening. The aware, silent space that knows the sensations, hears the sounds, sees the thoughts. Rest as that space for just a few seconds. That's it. That is mindfulness. It's not a special state. It's your natural capacity, momentarily free from being hijacked by the content of the stream. I want to share a personal story about how this practice met me in a moment of intense difficulty. Several years ago, I was driving through a fierce mountain storm. The rain was a solid wall, the wind shaking the car. Anxiety gripped me, a tight fist in my chest. My mind was the stream in full flood. What if I hydroplane? What if a tree falls? I shouldn't have come this way. Then, almost by accident, I remembered to practice. Instead of fighting the fear, I gently placed my attention on the physical sensation itself. This is what fear feels like in the body. Tight chest. Clenched jaw. Quick breath. I noted it, like a scientist observing weather. I then expanded my awareness to the sounds. This is the sound of heavy rain on the roof. This is the sound of the wipers. I brought it to the sight. These are the blurred red taillights of the car ahead. I didn't try to calm down. I simply moved my attention from the story about the storm to the direct sensory experience of the storm. And something remarkable happened. The I that was terrified began to recede. In its place was simply a collection of intense sensations and sounds, vivid, powerful, even awe-inspiring, but not personal. The anxiety was still a current in the stream, but I was back on the bank, watching it. I was the awareness having a stormy experience, not a self being stormed. I drove the rest of the way with a profound, steady calm amidst the outer chaos. This is the power of mindfulness. It doesn't remove the difficult conditions of life. It changes your relationship to them. It gives you the bank to stand on when the stream is raging. So, in your daily life, you can practice this. When you feel a strong emotion, instead of becoming it, try saying to yourself, "This is anger. This is sadness. This is excitement." Just that simple labeling creates a tiny, crucial gap between you and the emotion. In that gap is your freedom. In that gap, you remember you are the sky, not the storm. Let's close this part with a final, gentle breath. Inhale, and feel the alive, aware space within you. Exhale, and release any identification with the passing content. You are the witness, the host, the loving awareness that holds it all. Rest in that knowing. Let's settle even deeper now. Allow your eyes to soften, your jaw to unclench. There is only this moment, and the sound of this voice meeting you where you are. We've been exploring the terrain of the mind, its stories, its comparisons, its storms. Now, let's turn our attention to a force that moves through this terrain, energy. Not mystical energy, but the very practical, palpable energy of your attention. Where you place your attention is where you direct your life force. It is the most powerful currency you possess. Most of us live with our attention perpetually leaking. We give it away to things that do not replenish us. We pour it into past regrets, which are just ghosts. We spray it into future anxieties, which are just mirages. We scatter it across the shallow surfaces of digital lives, other people's opinions, and internal commentary. And then we wonder why we feel so deeply tired, even when we've done very little. The Buddhist teaching on right effort is a manual for the wise stewardship of this precious resource. It is not about straining or forcing. It's about learning to direct your attention with intention, like a gardener deliberately watering the plants they wish to grow. Right effort has 4 aspects, which are really one fluid practice. First, to prevent unskillful states from arising. This means not feeding the seeds of greed, hatred, or delusion when you see them sprouting. If you know scrolling through social media often plants seeds of envy, the wise effort is to not pick up the phone. Second, to let go of unskillful states that have already arisen. When you notice you're caught in worry or irritation, you don't fight it. You simply, gently, shift your attention elsewhere, to the breath, to a sound, to the sensation of your feet on the ground. Third, to cultivate skillful states. This is actively watering seeds of kindness, compassion, generosity, and calm. You notice a feeling of gratitude. Stay with it for an extra breath. You feel an impulse to be patient. Allow it to blossom. And fourth, to maintain those skillful states once they've arisen. When peace comes, don't immediately jump up to see what's next. Linger in it. Let it stabilize. Let your nervous system learn this new, kinder rhythm. This practice isn't about becoming a perfectly positive person. It's about ecology. It's about noticing which thoughts and habits pollute your inner stream, and which ones keep it clear. You are the guardian of your own inner environment. I'd like to share an original story about a gardener, one that illustrates this beautifully. In a village, there were two neighboring gardens. Ilara's garden was wild, overgrown, and stunningly beautiful. It burst with color and life, but also with thorns and invasive vines that choked some of the more delicate flowers. She loved it all equally and refused to prune anything, saying, "To interfere is to not accept life as it is." Yet, she was often scratched, tired from navigating the thicket, and sad when her favorite blooms were suffocated. Next door, Matteo's garden was also vibrant and alive, but it had a different quality. There was a sense of harmony. He would walk through it daily, not with control, but with relationship. He'd notice a vine starting to crowd a rose and gently guide it to a trellis. He'd see a patch of soil looking parched and give it water. He'd watch for the first signs of a blight and carefully remove the affected leaves. He didn't wage war on his garden, he tended it. He worked with its nature, encouraging balance. His labor was not exhausting, it was a peaceful, present communion. His garden thrived, and so did his spirit. Ilara believed acceptance meant non-action. Matteo understood that wise, compassionate action is a form of deep acceptance, it accepts the responsibility of care. Ilara's attention was scattered, reacting to every thorn and bloom as an equal crisis or joy. Matteo's attention was directed, discerning, nourishing the whole system. Your mind is your garden. Right effort is not the harsh pruning of shears, demanding perfection. It is Matteo's daily walk. It is the gentle, discerning guidance of your attention. It's noticing the thorny thought of self-criticism and choosing not to water it with more attention. It's noticing the delicate flower of a kind impulse and giving it the sunlight of your focus. This brings us to a tender and essential application of this wise energy, compassion for yourself. For many, this is the most difficult turn to make. We've been taught that self-criticism is a motivator and that self-care is selfish. We treat ourselves with a harshness we would never dream of directing toward a friend. The Buddha's path is one of radical, inclusive compassion. The first person who must be included in your circle of compassion is you. This is not a sentimental idea. It is a practical necessity. You cannot offer genuine peace to others from a place of inner warfare. You cannot extend kindness from a heart that is berating itself. Imagine you are a deep, clear spring. From this spring flows water. Your actions, your words, your presence in the world. If you poison the spring itself with criticism and neglect, everything that flows from it will carry that toxicity, no matter how good your intentions. But if you protect the spring, keep it clean and nourished, then the water that flows forth is naturally pure, healing, and refreshing to all who encounter it. Tending your spring is the foundation of all true service. It is the ultimate act of responsibility. Let me tell you a story about a lantern, passed down from my first teacher. In a temple atop a foggy mountain, there was a single, ancient bronze lantern that burned day and night. It was the duty of a young novice to keep it lit. He took his job very seriously, believing the light was a beacon of hope for all the lost travelers in the fog below. He would tirelessly polish the bronze, trim the wick, and fetch oil from deep in the cellar. One winter, a brutal storm hit. The paths were blocked. The oil reserve ran dangerously low. The novice grew frantic. He began to ration the oil, making the flame tiny and dim to make it last. The light, which was meant to be a generous beacon, became a weak, fearful flicker. The old master found him shivering by the feeble light. "Why do you starve the flame?" he asked. "To make it last, master. For the travelers." The master shook his head gently. He went to his own quarters and returned with a small, full vessel of oil, his personal reserve for reading on long nights. He poured it generously into the temple lantern. The flame leapt up, bright and steady, pushing back the thick fog. "You cannot save light by hoarding it," the master said. "You can only save it by feeding it. Your first duty is not to the travelers you imagine in the fog. Your first duty is to the flame. Keep it bright and full, and it will do its work for all, seen and unseen. To dim it out of fear is to fail in your duty to everyone, including yourself." The novice understood. His frantic conservation came from a place of fear and scarcity. The master's generous fueling came from a place of trust and abundance. By caring for the source, the flame, the benefit to others happened naturally, without strain. You are the keeper of your own inner flame, your peace, your clarity, your heart. When you deprive it, ration it, criticize it for needing fuel, you dim the light you have to offer the world. Compassionate self-care is not selfish. It is the responsible, generous act of keeping your lantern full and bright. From that abundance, you have true light to share. Take a breath with that. Inhale, and imagine feeding your inner flame with oxygen, with kindness. Exhale, and release any old story that says you must run on empty to be good. Your wholeness is a gift to us all. Let's settle into a space of deep listening. There is no need to hold on to anything from before. Each moment is fresh. Each breath is a new beginning. Allow yourself to be here, completely. We have explored the landscape of mind and the stewardship of our energy. Now, let's address something that often hides in the shadows of these explorations, the belief in our own brokenness. This is a deep, persistent story. It whispers that we are fundamentally flawed, that we arrive damaged, that our very core is cracked. We look at our reactions, our past, our struggles, and we see them not as human experiences, but as proof of a fatal defect. The Buddha's teaching on the two arrows is a profound medicine for this wound. He said that in life, we will all be struck by the first arrow. This is the unavoidable pain of existence, physical pain, loss, disappointment, grief, illness. These are not punishments. They are not personal. They are simply part of the contract of having a body, a heart, in a world of constant change. The suffering deepens, however, with the second arrow. This is the arrow we shoot into our own wound. It is the story we tell about the pain. This pain means I'm weak. This loss happened because I'm unlovable. This anxiety proves I'm defective. The first arrow is the event. The second arrow is the commentary, the judgment, the identity we forge from the hurt. Most of our exhaustion comes from the second arrow. We are not just in pain, we are at war with our pain, believing it defines us. We compound the original ache with layers of shame, fear, and self-rejection. Your pain is real. Your difficulties are real. But you are not your pain. You are the aware space in which pain is known. A storm is real, but the sky is not the storm. The storm happens within the sky. Your pain happens within the vast, aware space of you. The second arrow is the sky mistakenly believing, I am storm. I want to share a personal story about a second arrow I carried for years. In my late teens, I had a severe public stumble, literally and figuratively. During an important presentation, I tripped, spilled everything, and froze with fear. The memory was cringeworthy, but the second arrow I crafted was brutal. I am inherently clumsy and incapable under pressure. I will always humiliate myself. I am not fit for the spotlight. That story became a filter. Every minor stumble, every moment of nerves, was proof. I began avoiding any situation where I might be observed, shrinking my life to avoid the phantom of that old shame. Years later, during a meditation retreat, that memory surfaced. Instead of flinching away, I was asked to simply feel the physical sensations that arose with the memory, the heat in my face, the tightening in my chest. I was asked to label them, heat, tightness. Then, to notice the thoughts as just thoughts, thought of shame, thought of past. I was not asked to change the memory, but to change my relationship to it. And in that space of simple, non-judgmental noticing, something loosened. The memory was still there, but the story, the second arrow of, I am defective, lost its truth. It was seen as just a story, a painful thought I had been carrying, not a fact. The first arrow was a clumsy moment, long past. The second arrow was the prison I had built and lived inside for a decade. I put the second arrow down. This is the work, to learn to feel the sting of the first arrow without reaching for the quiver to shoot the second. It is to meet pain with mindful curiosity instead of fearful condemnation. Let's explore this with an original story, a folk tale from the northern forests. There was a skilled woodcarver named Anya who was known for creating exquisite figures from fallen branches. One winter, she found a beautiful piece of oak, but it had a deep, twisting crack running through its heart. Discouraged, she almost left it. The crack was a flaw. It meant the wood was broken. But the cold was bitter, and the wood was good, so she took it to her hearth. As she worked, her knife followed the natural line of the crack. Instead of fighting it, she incorporated it. She carved the crack into the flowing robe of a wise elder, the grain of the wood becoming the texture of cloth. The flaw became the central, most beautiful feature of the piece, a line of grace and resilience. When people saw it, they didn't see damaged wood. They saw how the artist had met wholeness and fracture and made them dance together. For years, Anya had kept a small, plain box on her shelf. Inside was a collection of flaws, knotted wood, burls, split pieces she'd once rejected. She now called it her box of possibilities. The world saw flaws. She had learned to see unique character, the starting point for a masterpiece that could never be made from perfect wood. You are that piece of wood. Your cracks, your pains, your past, they are not proof of being broken. They are the unique grain of your being. The second arrow is the judgment that says the crack ruins the wood. Wisdom is the gentle hand that learns to carve with the crack, integrating it into the wholeness of who you are. Your so-called flaws are not mistakes, they are your box of possibilities. Pause for a breath. Bring to mind a crack you carry. A regret, a failure, a trait you judge harshly. Just for this moment, see if you can look at it not as a flaw, but as a piece of unique grain. What if it's not here to be fixed, but to be understood, integrated? Breathe into that possibility. This understanding naturally dissolves another heavy burden, the need for total control. The second arrow often flies because we believe we should have been able to prevent the first arrow. If I were smarter, stronger, better, this wouldn't have happened. We live under the tyranny of should have. Buddhism introduces the concept of anicca, impermanence, and anatta, not self, to free us from this tyranny. Because everything is in constant flux and there is no fixed, you, in control, the idea that you could have orchestrated a perfect, pain-free life is revealed as a beautiful, painful fantasy. Imagine you are a leaf on a great river. You can feel the current, the sun, the rain. You can orient yourself. But you cannot control the river's speed, its depth, or where the tributaries lead. The leaf that struggles, that tries to swim upstream or halt the flow, will be torn apart. The leaf that relaxes, that trusts the buoyancy of the water and attends to its own relationship with the current, will travel with grace. It will still encounter rocks and rapids, those are the first arrows. But it won't add the second arrow of, I am a bad leaf for hitting a rock. Your life is the river. Your plans and efforts are the leaf orienting itself. Wisdom is knowing the difference between skillful orientation and the futile struggle to control the current. You can set intentions, you can make choices, but you must also let go of demanding that the river obey you. This is not passivity. It is intelligent cooperation with reality. It is the woodcarver using the crack, not pretending it isn't there. It is the leaf feeling the current and adjusting, not wasting its life force raging against the water. So today, when you feel the tension of control arise, when you're anxiously trying to manage outcomes, people's perceptions, or your own performance, gently ask, am I orienting my leaf, or am I trying to control the river? Then take a breath, feel the support of the water beneath you, and return to the simple, powerful act of presence. That is enough. That is everything. Let's close with a final breath, feeling the river of this moment. You are carried. You are safe. You are aware. Rest in that. Let's settle into the quiet between the words. Let your awareness be soft, like morning light filling a room. There's nothing to chase here, nothing to capture. Just being. We've been examining the stories that cause suffering, the story of a separate self, the story of brokenness, the story of control. Now, let's turn to one of the most powerful, and often misunderstood, refuges on this path, the practice of stillness. Not the stillness of a stagnant pond, but the dynamic stillness at the center of a turning wheel. In a world that worships motion, stillness can feel like a transgression. We equate being busy with being worthy. We fill our silence with noise because the quiet can feel intimidating. It's in the stillness that all the stories we've been running from finally catch up to us. But here is the secret, stillness is not where you meet your demons, it is where you realize they are made of mist. The Buddha sat in stillness under the Bodhi tree not to escape the world, but to meet it fully. In that profound stillness, he saw the nature of the mind, its cravings, its fears, its illusions. And he saw that they were not him. They were patterns passing through the still, clear space of awareness. That realization was his awakening. You don't need a Bodhi tree. You just need a willingness to stop, and to listen. Think of your mind as a snow globe that's been shaken for years. The flakes, Your thoughts, worries, memories, swirl in a frantic blizzard. You can't see clearly. You believe the blizzard is all there is. Stillness is simply setting the snow globe down. You don't have to make the flakes disappear. You just stop shaking. And as you rest in not shaking, the flakes begin to settle. The water clears. You see that the flakes were never the water, they were just temporary content within it. The calm, clear water is your true nature. This is the purpose of meditation, but you need not call it that. Call it conscious pausing. It is the intentional act of setting the snow globe down, many times a day. I want to share a personal moment of this kind of pause. I was once caught in a gridlock of traffic, late for an appointment. Heat shimmered off the hoods of cars. Horns blared. My mind was a blizzard of frustration. This is ruining everything. They'll think I'm irresponsible. Why does this always happen to me? The tension in my shoulders was a hard knot. Then, for no reason, my gaze landed on a single dandelion growing through a crack in the median. A perfect, sun-yellow sphere. In that instant, I stopped shaking the snow globe. I just looked at the dandelion. I didn't think about it, I saw it. And in that pure seeing, the blizzard of thoughts fell away. There was no me being late. There was just color, form, light. The traffic, the heat, the sound, they became part of a vast, impersonal tapestry, not a personal affront. The knot in my shoulders dissolved. I was still in the traffic, but I was no longer stuck in the story about the traffic. That simple, unplanned pause in a cracked median was a moment of freedom. Stillness isn't about location. It's about orientation. It's turning your attention from the swirling story to the aware space that holds it. Let's explore this with an original story, a modern parable about a musician. Elias was a concert pianist plagued by stage fright. His fear wasn't of the notes, but of the story. The story that one wrong note would unravel his entire worth, that the critics were waiting, that he was an imposter. Before every performance, the snow globe of his mind was a hurricane. One day, his wise old teacher didn't give him a new technique. She gave him a single instruction: tonight, do not play for the critics. Do not play for your career. Do not even play for the audience. For just the first 3 minutes, play for the silence between the notes. Confused, Elias agreed. That night, as he walked on stage, the familiar fear rose. But he remembered the instruction. He placed his hands on the keys and, before playing the first note, he listened. He listened to the vast, expectant silence of the hall. He felt the silence as a living thing. And then he played the first chord, not as a declaration, but as a way of honoring that silence. He paid acute attention to the moment the sound faded back into quiet before the next note. A remarkable thing happened. By anchoring his attention in the silence, the still space between the sounds, the story lost its power. He wasn't performing a drama about a pianist. He was engaged in an intimate conversation between sound and silence. His playing transformed. It became profound, connected, and utterly fearless. The critics raved, but that didn't matter. He had discovered that his refuge was not in the perfect note, but in the still awareness that heard both the note and the silence that followed. Your life is your instrument. Your thoughts, actions, and words are the notes. Your suffering comes from being lost in the melody of drama, chasing perfect notes and fearing wrong ones. Your freedom waits in the silence between the notes, in the still, aware presence that hears the whole composition without getting lost in any single part. Let's try a micro-pause right now. For just the next 30 seconds, let everything be exactly as it is. Don't try to change your breathing or quiet your mind. Simply turn your attention to the space around your thoughts. To the silence that holds the sound of my voice. To the awareness that is reading these words. Rest as that space. Just for 30 seconds. This practice of returning to stillness reveals another jewel, the wisdom of not knowing. Our minds are addicted to knowing. We crave certainty, labels, conclusions. We want to know who we are, what will happen, why things are the way they are. This craving for knowledge is often a craving for control, a way to solidify the ground beneath our feet. But the ground of life is inherently uncertain. It is fluid, creative, and mysterious. The attempt to nail it down with knowing is like trying to hold a river in your fist. You end up with neither a fist nor a river. The Buddha encouraged a different relationship with knowledge, wise inquiry. This is the courage to dwell in a question without rushing to an answer. To say, I don't know, and to be completely at peace with that. In the space of, I don't know, something fresh can arise. In the space of certainty, only the old, repetitive mind can speak. Imagine you are walking in a dense fog. If you panic, you might fixate on the first shadowy shape you see, convinced it's a landmark, a monster, or the path. You'll run toward it or away from it, often leading yourself in circles. But if you can relax in the not knowing of the fog, you become more perceptive. You notice subtle sounds, shifts in the air, the feel of the ground underfoot. You move with caution and curiosity, not assumption. The fog hasn't lifted, but your relationship to it has changed. You are no longer lost, you are exploring. I don't know is not ignorance. It is the fogwalker's humility. It is the precondition for seeing anything new. It is the silent, still space from which genuine wisdom, not borrowed knowledge, can be born. So, when you feel anxious because you don't have an answer, because the future is unclear, because you can't label what you're feeling, try something new. Instead of frantically searching for a conclusion, gently say to yourself, it's okay not to know right now. Then, become the fog walker. Be still. Be curious. Listen. Feel. The next step will reveal itself from the stillness, not from the panic. Let's close this part by resting in not knowing for a moment. Don't try to know who you are, or what you should do next. Simply be the aware space that holds this mysterious, precious, unfolding moment. It is enough. You are enough, precisely because you are not a fixed thing to be known, but a loving awareness, discovering itself anew in every breath. Let your awareness be like a soft blanket, wrapping around this moment. No need to grasp or push away. Simply be here, listening from that quiet center within you. We've explored stillness, the space between the notes. From that space, we can now look at one of the most tender and challenging aspects of the human journey, relationship. Not just relationships with others, but your relationship with yourself, with your past, and with the very act of connecting. So often, our connections become sources of exhaustion because we approach them from the story of a separate self, seeking to get something or defend something. The Buddha placed immense importance on spiritual friendship, Kalyamattata. He called it the whole of the holy life. This isn't about finding people who agree with you or make you feel good all the time. It is about finding companions who reflect back to you your own capacity for wisdom and kindness, and with whom you can practice walking the path of awakening together. But how do we navigate relationships that don't feel spiritual? Relationships that trigger old wounds, demand our energy, or leave us feeling drained. The answer is not necessarily to cut everyone out. It lies in discernment, and in understanding the difference between compassion and entanglement. Think of your being as a clear mountain lake. Some people come to the lake, sit quietly on the shore, and their presence is like a gentle breeze. It maybe ripples the surface, but the lake remains clear, deep, and refreshed by the exchange. This is spiritual friendship. Other people come with buckets. They are not there to appreciate the lake, they are there to extract water. They may need it, they may be thirsty, but if they take too much too quickly, they lower the water level, stir up the mud from the bottom, and leave the lake turbid and depleted. Your job is not to let the lake be drained. Your job is to be the steward of the lake. You can offer a cup of water with compassion, but you must protect the source. You may even need to gently ask the person with the bucket to find another way to drink, or to wait until the rains have replenished you. This is not unkind. It is the deepest form of kindness, to yourself and, ultimately, to them. A drained lake helps no one. I'll share an original story about a weaver and her loom. In a village, there was a master weaver named Lila. Her tapestries were so beautiful they seemed to hold light. People would travel far to watch her work. She was generous with her knowledge, allowing others to sit with her. One visitor, a woman named Mara, came day after day. But Mara did not watch with quiet appreciation. She constantly commented, "That red is too bold. Your tension is off there. My aunt weaves a much tighter pattern." Lila would explain her choices, defend her technique, and try to win Mara's approval. Soon, Lila dreaded her loom. Her hands grew tense. The joyful flow of creation was replaced by self-conscious strain. Her latest tapestry was stiff and lifeless. An elder weaver saw her struggle. She said to Lila, "Tell me, when you are weaving well, where is your attention?" Lila replied, "On the thread, the pattern, the emerging beauty." "And when Mara is here?" asked the elder. "On Mara. On her face. On her next comment." The elder nodded. "You have handed her the shuttle. You are trying to weave her tapestry, not your own. Your loom is yours. The thread is yours. The pattern emerges from your own heart. You can offer her a seat, but you cannot give her the shuttle. Protect your loom, or you will forget how to weave." The next day, when Mara arrived and began to speak, Lila did something simple. She smiled, nodded to acknowledge she'd heard, and then she deliberately turned her gaze back to her threads. She placed her attention on the sensation of the wool, the click of the loom, the joy of color. She reclaimed her shuttle. Mara, finding no engagement for her comments, eventually grew quiet, then left. Lila's hands relaxed. The flow returned. You are the weaver. Your attention is your shuttle. Your life is the tapestry. You cannot stop people from commenting, but you can choose where to place your attention. Protect your loom. Do not hand your shuttle to anyone. True compassion in relationship means staying connected to your own center so fully that you can engage from a place of wholeness, not depletion. This discernment applies powerfully to the past. To old stories, old wounds, old versions of ourselves that we keep in relationship with. We often drag the past into the present like a heavy, familiar sack, believing we must carry it forever. We think this is loyalty, or honesty. But it is entanglement. The Buddha taught that while we should understand the past, we should not dwell in it. Understanding is healing, dwelling is haunting. Imagine you are hiking up a mountain. You come across a heavy, beautiful geode. A rock from a lower part of the path. It is part of your journey. You pick it up, examine it, appreciate its crystals. Understanding. Then, you have a choice. You can put it down, leaving it as part of the landscape you crossed, and continue your climb unburdened. Or you can put it in your pack and carry it uphill, season after season, complaining of the weight. That is dwelling. Your past experiences, especially painful ones, are like those geodes. They are real. They happened. They may even contain hidden crystalline insights. But they belong to a part of the path you are no longer on. To study them is wisdom. To carry them forever is suffering. I have a personal story about putting down a geode. For years, I carried a story of a childhood betrayal. It wasn't a dramatic trauma, but a small, sharp stone of humiliation I'd picked up and kept in my pocket. I'd feel its edges every time I felt vulnerable, every time I hesitated to trust. I believed carrying it made me wise to the ways of the world. One day, during a long walk, I actually took a real stone from the path and held it in my hand, feeling its weight. I thought of that old hurt. And a clear question arose: does carrying this make me safer, or just heavier? The answer was instant: just heavier. Right there, on the path, I opened my hand and let the real stone fall. I made a simple, internal vow to let the old story fall too. Not to forget it, but to stop carrying it as my identity. The relief was physical. I stood straighter. The geode was left on the path where it belonged. I was free to continue the climb with lighter steps. What geode are you carrying? Can you, even just in this moment of listening, imagine opening your hand and letting it rest on the ground of the past? You are not abandoning yourself. You are freeing yourself to be fully present for the path ahead. Let's breathe into this new lightness. Inhale, feeling the spaciousness in your chest and heart. Exhale, releasing any old weight you've been carrying for a season that has passed. You are here now. The past is a story. The present is alive. Choose the alive. Welcome to this final stretch of our journey together. Settle in. Let the weight of your body be fully supported. There is no rush. No conclusion to reach. Only a gentle completion of a circle, returning to the place we never truly left, the present moment, exactly as it is. We have traveled through many concepts, stillness, relationship, the stories of self and brokenness, the stewardship of attention. Now, we arrive at the simplest and most profound of all, the practice of coming home. This is not a practice of addition. It is not about gaining something you lack. It is a practice of recognition, of remembering what has been true all along. The Buddha's awakening was not the acquisition of secret knowledge. It was a profound, irreversible remembering. He remembered his true nature, which had been obscured by the dust of craving, aversion, and delusion. Your path, too, is one of remembering. Each time you notice you are the sky and not the storm, you remember. Each time you feel the stillness between thoughts, you remember. Each time you choose compassion over fear, you remember. You are not becoming enlightened. You are remembering that you are awareness itself, temporarily experiencing the dream of being a person. Let me share one final, original story. It's a tale of a bell and a listener. In a forgotten valley, there stood an ancient bell, cast from a mysterious alloy. It had not been rung in living memory. A traveler, weary from his search for meaning, stumbled into the valley. He saw the bell, covered in moss and vines. Having read that bells held wisdom, he began a frantic search for the clapper. He dug in the earth around it, scaled its sides looking for a hidden mechanism, shook it with all his might. He grew exhausted, dirty, and defeated. The bell was silent. He sat down in despair, his back against the cold bronze. As his breathing slowed, he closed his eyes. In the deep quiet, he heard a faint, pure tone, a hum that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. It was not a sound he heard with his ears, but a vibration he felt in his bones. It had been there all along, beneath the noise of his searching. The bell was not meant to be struck from the outside. Its true nature was to resonate with the silence. The traveler had been the clapper, frantically trying to ring the bell, when all he had to do was be still and listen for its eternal song. He sat for a long time, simply resonating with that inner hum. When he finally rose, he left the valley a changed man. He hadn't found an answer. He had stopped drowning out the question with noise. He had come home to the listening. You are both the bell and the traveler. You have been searching for a clapper. A job, a relationship, an achievement, a spiritual experience, to strike your life into meaning and sound. The exhaustion is the searching. The peace is the listening. Your true sound is not produced by external forces. It is the innate hum of conscious presence, always here, waiting to be noticed when you stop striving. Take a moment now. Close your eyes if you wish. Stop trying to hear anything. Instead, listen to the silence out of which all sounds emerge. Feel the alive, aware presence that is reading these words. That is the hum. That is your essential sound. You are already ringing with the truth of being. This brings us to the end of our formal exploration, but to the beginning of your own. The Buddha's teachings are not a finish line, they are an offering of tools for the journey, a map that says, you are here, and here is already whole. What remains is not a list of things to do, but a simple invitation to live from remembrance. When you feel the old contraction of, I am not enough, remember, you are the ocean, worrying about a wave. When you are lost in planning and worry, remember, you are the sky, clouded by weather. When you are tempted to explain your worth, remember, you are the mirror, needing no reflection's approval. When you feel compassion fatigue, remember, you are the spring. Tend the source. When pain arises, remember, feel the first arrow. See if you can leave the second in its quiver. When you are caught in a story, remember, you are the aware space between the words. This is the practice. Not perfect, but persistent. A gentle returning, again and again, to what is already true. There is a beautiful Pali word, bhavana. It is often translated as meditation, but its root means to cultivate, or to cause to become. The ultimate bhavana is the cultivation of this remembrance until it becomes your default home, the ground from which you live. You will forget. Of course you will. The mind's old habits are deep. On some days, you will feel like the clear sky. On others, you will be utterly convinced you are the thunderstorm. This is not failure. This is the path. The moment you notice you have forgotten, that moment of noticing is remembrance. It is the bell's hum heard again. Be gentle with yourself in this endless, loving return. As we close, I offer you a blessing, not from me, but from the timeless wisdom of this path. May you be gentle with your own heart. May you meet your moments with curiosity, not condemnation. May you protect your inner peace as the sacred trust it is. May you remember that you belong to life, utterly. And when you forget, may you remember to remember. Thank you for walking this path with me. Thank you for your courageous listening. This is Monk's Moon Temple. A place to remember. You are always welcome here. Go in peace. Live from remembrance. The journey continues, beautifully, in every breath you take.